talk to you about these folks right here. These are the representatives of the climate change conference that just ended, that was at Sharm el-Sheikh in Egypt. And theoretically, these are the people who represent you in terms of looking at how the global climate change is affecting all of us and what we're going to do. And as soon as you look at the group, you should see lots and lots of reasons why we need a new leadership on our planet, because these are the folks that got us into trouble in the first place. These are the folks whose consciousness got us in the position where we're in right now. What we have to do is start thinking about the question of who are we and where are we, as we are well into the 21st century right now, and looking at leadership that is somewhere between the 19th and the 20th. The question is this: who actually represents you? Now, most of us on the planet don't think about that question at all. We don't think about the question because if our leadership is at least benign, it's okay. We're just going to go along with the program. We'll try to get a little bit more out of them, or try to get a little less burden out of them. But that's not how the rest of the world sees our situation. Do you think that government represents you? Well, there's an awful lot of people in the world that sees the government being the enemy. I'm thinking about, for example, I think I just lost my screen. Hang on. I'm thinking about, for example, the people in Myanmar, the former Burma, whose government is at war with them. I mean, literally, the government is doing aerial bombardment on the cities and towns and villages. Who do they represent? They represent themselves, which is the representation pattern for most of the governments in the world. They represent themselves, and they throw a few bones over here and a few bones over there to act like they represent all. What the people in Sri Lanka are going through right now is nearly horrific. Inadequate food, inadequate fuel, inadequate everything. And the folks in Congress, in their parliament, just sit around and debate and debate. They had insurrections in the street, and they overthrew the last group of cronies, and now they have a new group of cronies in there who are just sitting there debating. Or you could have the government of Senegal, where they're just having open fist fights in the parliament. Are we represented by a particular political party? I would suggest to you that despite the fact that you may vote for one or the other, they don't represent you. They represent themselves. Are you represented by a particular religion or a particular religious leader? I would suggest not. I would suggest that that the political leaders nowadays represent themselves. And so who is actually representing us? And I would say that at this point in the 21st century, nobody's representing us, okay? And And it feels like the world is basically going in whatever direction we've put it some time ago. And if they really represented us, they'd be going in a completely different direction. And why in the world are we debating whether or not we're going to cut out the lungs of our world? We're going to let somebody, and I don't even know who it is, destroy the Brazilian rainforest upon which my oxygen depends. Who is representing us? Good question. I want to get to the answer to that question at the end. So remind me that I've got an answer for you. I've got to come up with an answer for you. What do we choose to focus on as we are drifting around in the 21st century? This is the essence of my book, What Does the Baby Look Like? Because we spend almost all of our time focusing on the afterbirth. Oh, does that afterbirth have the mother's or the father's eyes? Oh, gee, it doesn't have any eyes at all. We know what we do with the afterbirth. We toss it. Some societies, they would take the afterbirth and they put it in the ground, and they plant a tree, they put a tree seed over top of it, and that tree represents the baby as it's growing. But we don't rinse that off and wrap it up in a blanket and take it home. This is the one we take home. And this is the focus. If we spent all of our time looking at the afterbirth, looking at racism, sexism, homophobia, classism, looking at political conflict, looking at war, looking at all the bad things that are happening. The question is, why are these bad things happening? Where's the baby? Okay. And there needs to be a baby. There is a baby. We just need to start paying attention to it. Okay. Yeah, which one do you want to take home? We don't pay attention to the type of society that we're going to live in the 21st century. We can choose what society we want to live in, but for most of us, those choices are being made for us right now. We're not really active participants in the choice. So our images of where we'll live in the 21st century are given to us generally by our technology folks who want to play around with flying cars, or our politicians that want to paint rosy pictures for us. If you've seen images like this, then this is the technological future. What this gives us is more of what we've got. Okay, we'll get what this gives us is more cities, more roads, which probably mean more cars, more tall buildings, which means somebody's making money. And the question is this really what we want? Is this really what we can expect from our from where we are right now? Is what we want bigger and better cities? Is that what would meet our heart's desires? Is that what the baby looks like? Well, there's some folks. Oh, and actually, I don't know if you saw the movie. The name of it is Elysium, where this is actually a torus in outer space, and all the rich people go up into outer space and live nowhere near us. Or are we looking at a dystopia? Are we looking at a society where things don't work, where things fall apart, where there is no common good? Now, if you notice, though, these images are also high tech. These images are high tech that doesn't work, high tech gone wrong. And we still don't know what the baby looks like. We still haven't asked ourselves, what is the nature of the society that we want to live in? Okay. So the question that we've got is, what is the nature of society in the 21st century going forward? What is the nature of the society that we, through our actions, want to create? If I opened the floor to a conversation, I already know what the conversation is going to look like, and it's the wrong conversation. And I'll tell you why. If I asked you to design the society of the 21st century, or if I asked you, what does the baby, what is our nascent society look like? You're going to talk from all of the things that you've been thinking about society for the past few years, and it's going to look ecologically sound, and it's going to have lots of growing things in it, and people are going to be smiling, and your house won't be on fire. And I don't think that those are the right answers. I don't think that they're the right answers because there are some questions that come before all of that. And the questions that come before all of that are pretty simple. Who are you? What do you want? And where are we going? Now, for those of you who have read Creating a World That Works for All, you know that there's a section in there. And for those of you who may have read it some years ago, even some decades ago, I'm going to remind you of a story that's in there. And the story is something that happened to me some years ago. I was at the Green Gulch Zen Center down in San Francisco, and a beautiful day. And we're in this couple hundred people in this white tent, and, you know, birds and bees are flying through it, and beautiful spring morning. And the monk had this really sing-songy voice. And so he's talking, he's giving the lecture. They don't call it lecture. That there's a word that's stuck in my head that they call it. And but people are dozing in the tent. And as he's going on, he stops and he says, "Who are you?" And he pauses for a second. Then he says, "What do you want?" And then he picks up his lecture where he left off. And this is, very unmonk-like behavior. So we go another 4 or 5 minutes, and he stops again. He says, "Who are you?" And he pauses and he says, "What do you want?" He does this 3 or 4 times. And I realized, okay, so he's going to keep doing this. This is like the monk's gimmick. Okay, so next time he asks the question, I'll have an answer in my mind of who I am and what I want. And he asks the question, "Who are you?" And then I think, that's not who I am. And then he thinks, he asks, "What do you want?" He's like, "Well, I want that, but that's not all I want, you know." And I realized, after I was getting thoroughly pissed off not at him, but pissed off that I couldn't come up with an answer for this, that these are ultimate questions. These are questions that hopefully you'll form some level of response to, but you'll be asking these questions for the rest of your life. Who are you? And what do you want? And where are we, not you, where are we going? Where do we want to go? Where are we, where are we heading toward? Where are we afraid that we're heading toward? What are we afraid that we may wind up doing? Now, if I'm correct, everyone here is either in North America or Europe. I'm looking at our list here. And everyone here is reasonably comfortable, meaning you've eaten within the past 24 hours, meaning no one has held a gun on you in the past 24 hours, meaning that you are not afraid for your security today, or afraid for your existence of your family and your loved ones today. In a way, that's great. I mean, like, I grew up in a dystopia, in a not a future dystopia, a very current dystopia. In fact, the Camden, New Jersey dystopia is actually kind of old now. Our challenge is to step outside of our North Americanness, to step outside of our Europeanness, and find out what humanity needs in the 21st century. And even then, to step outside of our humanness and find out what our Mother Earth needs as we are entering into the 21st century. Now, everybody on this call is comfortable with those kinds of questions, okay? Most of the folks that you saw in that group photo from Sharm el-Sheikh, folks have never asked that question. They don't even know what the question means. The question is largely meaningless to them. So which one of us should be representing the earth? I would suggest that it's us. Now, how do we do that? With some care and with some dedication and commitment. And I'll talk about all of that in a minute. Actually, I won't talk about all of that in a minute, because that's why we're going to have 6 sessions stretched over 3 months, because there's an awful lot to talk about in there. If all we have to talk about is, what do you want? I mean, like, okay, the Christmas is coming. What do you want? Now, my beard's not that long and I'm not that fat, but listen, we'll pretend I'm Santa Claus. What do you want? But I think the question is really different. I think the question is, what do you want to give? What is it in your heart that you have to commit? Where are you going and where are we going? And how are all of us going to get there? Looking at the stumbling blocks we've got. Government isn't a friend. Government is a stumbling block. Our political structure, that's not friends. Those are vested interests with very narrow focus. Our religious leaders have largely abdicated the scene, or they're so embroiled in their own morality plays that they don't have time to provide the kind of morality that we need in the 21st century. I'll tell you a story that it'll feel very truncated because I don't give you a lot of details while I'm being recorded. As happened when I was in undergraduate school, and there was a student who very consciously got themselves in trouble. I mean, they were, again, I won't give you a lot of doing something amazingly stupid. And my thought was, that's them, and they'll pay the price for it. And a group of students came to me and said, Sharif, you've got to break this up. And my first thought was, why do I have to break it up? Like they are same age as me, same condition as me. Why do I have to break it up? And because I was asked, I stepped in and I broke it up. And part of the breaking up involved guns and knives and stuff like that. And I kind of walk into the middle of this and I broke it up. So, but for years, actually decades, it's like, they didn't call the campus police. They didn't call, the city police. They didn't call the dean's office. They called me. And it took a while for me to recognize why that was. And the reason was that even as an 18-year-old or a 19-year-old, they saw in me some level of moral authority. They knew if they called the police, somebody would start shooting or stabbing. That they wouldn't listen to, the dean of students. And if someone figured out that I could say, stop doing that, and that they would actually stop doing that. Now, that was true back in 1970, okay? It took me 30 or 40 years to figure that part out. Your moral authority does not come, I'm about to overstep myself. I was about to say, your moral authority does not come with a reference manual of how to do this. It does. In fact, you've got at least a dozen different reference manuals if you know how to read them. If you've got somebody reading them for you, then it won't work. So this session, the sessions of What the Baby Looks Like, is divided into two parts. One part is What do you look like? Who are you? What is your authority in the world? How do you increase your authority in the world? The other part is, what does the society look like? And not what the society looks like being this entity that just gives you stuff, but what does it look like when you are the one acting in the world, but you are the one acting as the world? So what it starts to look like, we're going to go through each one of the stages of what that world looks like. And as we're going through these stages, I'm going to be encouraging you to look at this not from what are those people over there going to do, but what is mine to do? That you're being called right now, just like I was called to intervene in a situation I really didn't want to intervene in. You're being called right now, and it's time for you to step up right now. And this is just going to give you a little bit of extra, a pre-publication copy of what the baby looks like. So you will be ahead of the game. This is a picture, not accurate in any way, shape, or form, of the signing of the Declaration of Independence. It's not accurate in any way, shape, or form because the room is configured differently than that. And they weren't fighting each other. In the picture, they're not fighting. They're all looking like, oh yeah, we all agree on this. And that took place in this building, Independence Hall. And because I lived right across the river in Camden, New Jersey, we took frequent class visits over to Independence Hall. And most of the kids were just acting out. It's a great opportunity to be outside of your class. But I took this very, very seriously. I remember walking up the stairs thinking, these are the stairs that Thomas Jefferson walked. These are the stairs that John Adams walked. These are the stairs that Benjamin Franklin, he probably pulled himself up this hand railing. You could feel, after 200 years, you could feel the indents in the hand railing where people put their hands. And they did that for this, a piece of paper, not too many words, that caused a revolution and actually fed many, many revolutions around the world. There are a lot of different revolutions where people literally copied Thomas Jefferson's words in this document. Even in the Communist Manifesto of Vietnam was written, we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. These ideas were foundational for a society that existed 225 years ago. It's time for us to do this again. And a lot of people go back to this original language to try to replicate. How many of us have seen declarations of interdependence? Like, oh, okay, that's even better. But I say we have to go deeper than that. I think it's time for us to look at the nation of Gaia. There's nothing that says a nation has to be geographically located. There's nothing that says a nation can't represent the entire globe. There's nothing that says that 8 billion human beings cannot organize themselves around one thought. I think we can. I think that we have to if we intend to live on this planet much longer. I think that we have to create a political structure, a culture, and a consciousness that truly represents humanity as an integral part of our mother, and to let go of all of the different ways that we can see ourselves as different. Just a few minutes. The third point is going to be the easiest point. When our founders 225 years ago got into that room on a very hot July day, pre-air conditioning, they were faced with some basic divisions in how that society was going to come together. It took them 3 attempts. I mean, the first 3 governments failed. Okay, we have to remember the first 2 governments failed. This is the 3rd U.S. government, and it's failed. Okay, so the issue of slavery, the issue of numerical representation. Rhode Island didn't want it, and New York did, and other things like that. Second issue. Oh, I did that in one minute. Okay. So second issue. Years and years ago, I was talking with Thomas Banyaka, and Thomas was one of the Hopi elders who was commissioned to go around the world and deliver the Hopi prophecy and basically the get your fecal matter together, get it together. So when he was commissioned by the other elders to go around the world, he needed a passport. Now, technically, the Hopi nation is an independent sovereign entity in the United States. But the United States has never, ever treated any of the reservations as independent entities. And so they thought that it was important to do that. So Thomas made himself a passport. And he made it out of deer skin, and the holder on it was an antler, and the insides had, from the Hopi Nation, And the first country he went to, he's at passport control, so he hands over the passport, and they're like, "This is Germany." It's like, whoa, wait a minute. They said 4 or 5 hours he was sitting there, and they would come through and they'd look at it, and but you're from the United States. It's like, no, I'm here from the Hopi Nation. And after 4 or 5 hours, they stamped it. And he said, after that, every other country you went to, they saw the German stamp. Okay, we can stamp it too. So how you present yourself, how you, what your expectations are, is will go toward how you are going to be received and at what level you are going to be received. I don't expect anybody to be handing over their U.S. passports. I need to say that because number one, I have no intention of handing over mine. Number two, it's not about that. So my last story is about a guy by the name of Lee Kuan Yew. Lee Kuan Yew is considered the father of Singapore. And Singapore was when it got its independence was like Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka had three major ethnic groups. They had four or five major ethnic groups, and they had a history of warring with each other. And Lee Kuan Yew basically said, we're not going to do that. What we're going to do is create another culture. So you can be Chinese or Malay or Arab or Tamil, and I got all four of them, okay? But over top of that, we're going to have another culture. That other culture is called Singapore. Its language will be English, since all of us had to learn English under the British colony. So we can talk to each other. We can work together. Everything will be shared equally and in your representation. And if you don't like any of that, you should go find someplace else to live. And he had the moral authority to make that happen. And in all of the energy that goes toward making people hate each other, making people, I want everything for me, that consciousness never took hold on the island. And the consciousness that took hold on the island is, we're all going to ride this elevator together. And the Singapore success story is goes without saying now. And I guess I should go without saying now. I appreciate your focus and your attention. I look forward to doing this. I'm sorry, I got to punch up a calendar real quick. So it's not going to be on the 13th, which would be a week from now, but I've already got some work that day. This is the stuff that keeps the tofu on the table. So we're going to make it on the 15th, same time, and I'll send out a notice on all of this. I see that I've got Susan's birthday on my calendar here. So we'll all have to sing happy birthday to her on the 15th. Or we could do it right now. And I'll send out a calendar reference for those of us who are in the gathering to ask you what are your best dates and times to gather. Please send that in as soon as you get it, so that I can start doing my behind the scenes planning here. Thank you. Look forward to us connecting again next week, and I will talk to you at another point in time. Bye.